All right, welcome back, Bears Nation podcast. It is Wednesday, December 20th, and nothing matters anymore, but we're still here. And the Bears are laying more than a field goal against a National League football team, which I'm not sure how I feel because I'm not sure the Bears should be favored by that much over anybody ever. Maybe the Panthers, maybe. But that being said, I I don't know if you were serious when you walked in here and said you have a conversation point.
No, I actually do.
Okay, so let's just get into it. Kevin Lapka is always with me on this wonderful program. What is it? What do you got?
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas,
whatever.
right? We're not gonna
Yeah,
we probably won't do a post game on Christmas.
Correct.
Right. So we got a lot of listeners, man, who we appreciate.
I was gonna
and
do
love.
it at the end.
Okay,
but okay.
fine. All right. Well, anyway, Christmas Eve game. We're going to get to that in a second. There's just a really interesting conversation about Justin Fields. I want to piggyback off of when we had our conversation last episode and really every episode about what to do with Fields and Caleb Williams and the draft and everything. And it's just something that I don't think a lot of people spend a lot of time on. And it's just a lazy take. And I was talking about it with my dad in the car. I was like, I think we got to talk about this. So like the conversation you hear a lot about the justification for drafting Caleb Williams is reset the contract clock. Reset the contract, right? Like don't allocate all of this money to Justin Fields. And I think the assumption is that if you retain Fields, you have to give him a Daniel Jones-esque contract, which I don't think is the case. And if you look at the Daniel Jones contract, right, you're talking about something, I think, what I want to say 160 for 4 years, but I don't think the guaranteed money was like that crazy. But anyway, 4 years, $160 million. They had just won a playoff game. They believed in what they had with Brian Daboll and the two of them and what they had built. It was more logical at the time for them. It was more warranted to give him a contract extension. Although we know Justin Fields is a better player than Daniel Jones, I think anyone objectively could probably tell you that. They were in a place coming off a playoff win where they had a lot of momentum going into those negotiations that it was more likely that was done. $82
million guaranteed.
What's that? $82 million guaranteed? Yes, that's crazy. Only half of the contract guaranteed. Usually you'll see a higher percentage than that. But as it pertains to Justin Fields, again, I do feel like everyone who thinks Justin Fields staying in Chicago thinks he's going to get a contract extension. And I just really don't think that's the case. And I think the whole reset in the contract clock is a lazy take because we've talked about before, Justin Fields isn't in a position to ask for that type of money. Like his agent can't walk into the meeting room and be like, hey, $160 million. Like he just can't. You haven't won much. You know, there's been mistakes. There's been all these different things. So if they don't do that, let's take the route of not extending Justin Fields and how you can keep Justin Fields in a Bears uniform without extending him. And this is where things get really interesting financially. So next year, he's owed $6 million. $6 million. That's it. That is the cap hit. $6 million. But they would have to make the fifth-year option decision this offseason. They have to pick up that fifth-year option. And you're probably looking at like $25 million for that in the fifth year because it's based off of Pro Bowl selections and the amount of time playing on the field. So obviously he's played a ton, but he hasn't had a Pro Bowl selection. Mm-hmm. So he's not going to earn what the franchise tag dollar would be. Like if you're Justin Jefferson, you would earn at the fifth year option, whatever the franchise, like, because he's been to Pro Bowls. He's played all the time. Like he's going to earn the highest dollar value. Justin Fields won't. So you're probably looking like I estimate about $25 million. So you're talking about $30 million over the next 2 years. And then after that, 2026, you could then franchise tag him at that point. Sure. After that, which the franchise tag number is obviously a little bit more, probably at that point, after more quarterback contracts come through, 35 million, something like that. But even then, so then you're talking about over the next 3 years, only about $60 million over the next 3 years, $20 million a year. That is not financially killing you at that point at all. That gives you so much flexibility, especially if you can use draft picks this year on other rookie contracts. That gives you flexibility to build a roster. And if you get to that point, say they don't want to franchise tag him at the end of the year after the fifth year option. You get to that point, you spend the $6 million next year and then the $25 million or whatever it may be the year after that, and then you want to get rid of him. Then you have all of the cap flexibility in the world. You have all these draft picks. You have all these guys on rookie contracts. And then you'll have a very good team with cap space flexibility to plug another quarterback into at that point if you want to move on from Justin Fields. So financially, I think it makes a lot of sense. And the other, side of this argument is reset the clock. How many quarterbacks win the Super Bowl in the first 3 years before getting the contract extension anyway? Like Patrick Mahomes 2018.
So Joe Burrow almost.
Joe Burrow almost, right? Like if you look at the Super Bowl winners, it just doesn't happen that often. So if you're making the argument that we have to reset the contract clock because, Caleb Williams is going to be so much cheaper, well, then you're essentially saying he better win the Super Bowl in the first 3 years before he is the next guy to earn $250 million. That's what you're saying before you're in cap hell. You're putting the standard at win the Super Bowl in 3 years while we have quote unquote reset the contract clock. Because after that, if he's good, $250 million. And then you're in the same fucking hole that you're talking about right now. So I don't know. I was kind of going through this and sure, does it help my defense of Justin Fields and reasoning to keep him around? Yes. But logical?
It's logical up to a point, and that point being you say that, okay, Justin Fields doesn't work out. In this scenario, you assume that there's a quarterback ready, able, and available to just be able to be plugged in.
Yeah, I mean,
that's assuming. Like that's a big if.
It's a big
That's
if.
assuming you can because you might have to draft somebody again. And then you're, like you said, you're in that 3-year waiting period with this good team while everyone else around the quarterback ages.
You're talking about after the 5th year option.
Right. So like the caveat with that is, or the pitfall I see with that is, if Fields does not take that step next year, then what? Because clearly with Fields, you're good enough to win between 6 to 8 games. So you ain't probably not getting your quarterback in the following draft if he doesn't take you over the hump next year and you decide to move on. Because if you're only a 6 to 8 win team next year, again, probably not picking up that option at that point, and you're probably moving on. So then you have to draft somebody anyway. And in this scenario that, okay, you build the team up, you have all this flexibility. Look what happened this year. Who got picked up off the street? Joe Flacco, Jake Browning, Brett Rippon, Tim Boyle. So it's like,
I'm not talking about veterans off the street. I'm talking about what I did. What I said, we placed our stake on what we want the Bears to do. And I said, draft somebody in 3rd or 4th round, right? Like,
sure,
follow the 49ers blueprint. Draft a quarterback you think could be plugged in with a little bit of experience.
It's just like having a rookie. Even if you've had you don't know that they're going to be Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy right now is the anomaly, not the rule.
Yeah,
my only thing with it.
Yeah.
So that's still risk. That's still basically having, even if, look what happened with Jordan Love this year. First year as a starter, look at the ups and downs that happened. It was essentially a rookie roller coaster.
Well, they gave him a contract, but.
Right. But my point being, as far as playing time.
Yeah. Because
even if you draft somebody in the 3rd or 4th round this year, then you just have the same situation.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. And I'll say this argument again, just because I'm not advocating for this. I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, but in the mind of Ryan Poles, who feels the heat on his job, who likely is starting to sweat a little bit, the opportunity, because how often on the show have we talked about, you bring in a new quarterback for the new coach, and that doesn't work out. So then you bring in a new coach who thinks they can fix the new quarterback. Then that doesn't work. So the new coach wants to get their quarterback, and it doesn't work. And every 2 years you're doing this cycle. If you're Ryan Poles, you have the opportunity to fully reset with both, because the Bears have never had people on the same page. You've never had the two most important things on the same page: quarterback and head coach. Over the last 10, 15 years, it's been one or the other, flip-flop every 2 years. You have an opportunity to reasonably reset both things this year. Matty Eberflus, you can make an argument for him staying. You could also make a stronger argument to let him go. Justin Fields, you can obviously make an argument to let him go and to move on. You can also, as we've seen, make the argument for him to stay. But if you're Ryan Poles, this is not Jake Hassan speaking. This is the Ryan Poles thought process. You have the opportunity to pick your coach and then work with your handpicked coach to work with your quarterback. I'm not saying that this is the right thing to do. I'm not saying that's what I want them to do, but you have to figure that that's where his head is maybe at. You have to consider that's something he's considering. Not saying he's going to do that, but you have to at least acknowledge that the temptation to go through the search yourself for both the quarterback and the coach and get everything aligned and move on from there and use that as a jumping point with the team still around you that you have, with DJ Moore, with Cole Kmet, with maybe, whoever, one of the wide receivers within the top 10, if you're going to use number 1 on one of the quarterbacks. Just saying it's an option, just saying that we have to at least acknowledge that that's a very tempting possibility if you're a general manager who has 8 wins so far under his regime and is probably starting to sweat a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also you again, both things can be true. Again, you could not be financially tied to Justin Fields, and if things don't work out next year, then say you fire Eberflus this year, the new coach comes in with the approach of trying to fix Justin Fields and trying to build with the roster that they have that's ready to win. And if for some reason it doesn't work out, maybe Fields gets hurt or whatever it may be, then the coach can pick his quarterback at that point too. Like, it doesn't all have to happen on the same timeline
Just did that with Matt
necessarily.
Nagy, though.
Well, yeah, but that feels different. That feels different.
Why?
Because Justin Fields is a better quarterback than Mitch Trubisky. I mean, I think that
Caleb Williams or Drake May might be better than Justin Fields. I know we don't believe that right now, but,
sure, but
it's a possibility. It's the same exact conversation.
But this is what
because we
all
talked
the
about
teams
Mitch
do.
Trubisky's potential for a long time too. And I know, I'm not saying that Mitch Trubisky is certified bad. Don't get me wrong. Justin Fields, I think, could be successful somewhere else, but it's the same conversation.
I mean,
we just did this.
A lot of teams do that. Like, it's not like the 49ers didn't.
And arguably, we're doing it with Eberflus right now.
What do you mean?
As far like coming in thinking he could work with Fields and make it work, and it hasn't. Same thing that Nagy did with Trubisky. Yeah. So again, that's where the temptation of fully resetting and getting everything aligned on the same clock might be tempting and might be something that looks good to Ryan Poles.
I mean, past Super Bowl champions, how many of them brought in the head coach and drafted the quarterback in the same year and won a Super Bowl?
Well, I don't know off the top of my head, obviously, but
I don't think it's happened for. I don't think it's happened for a decade.
And then won the Super Bowl in the first year. Probably.
I'm not talking about the Super Bowl in the first year. I'm talking about ever. Like, I'm just that people talk so much about that timeline. Again. There's no perfect way to build a football team.
Sure.
There's just not. I mean, there's a lot of luck associated with it. There's a lot, right? There's no perfect way to do it. And again, we're so married to the idea of bring in the head coach and the quarterback as the nucleus and build around it instead of building around it and then bring in, like, maybe that's not the case for the head coach, but that definitely can be the case for the quarterback.
Sure.
And again,
you're probably going to see it next year wherever Justin Fields ends up.
Right. And just like all the teams that are good right now, like the Eagles, the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, right? All four of those teams, just the four out the top of my head, all had good teams and brought in a quarterback, let them sit for a little bit, came in and were successful. I mean, that, like, the Chiefs had Alex Smith, who was winning them, 10 to 11 games, getting them to the playoffs, and had Mahomes sit behind him. Yeah, Mahomes is a first-round pick, and in my scenario, I'm thinking about third, fourth-round pick, more of like a Dak Prescott behind Tony Romo scenario, right? Because was he drafted after Tony Romo got hurt or retired? I can't remember.
No, it was the same year.
It was the same year, so Romo was still playing, and he sat behind Romo? Okay.
Until Romo
got hurt. Right, exactly. So, it's just... And maybe I'm just using recency bias in the way the NFL is working right now, but these are the teams that are good. Like, it doesn't always work. And I'm not saying it can't work where you have everyone on the same time, and you draft the quarterback and then bring in the head coach all at the same period. I just think there's no perfect way to do it. And if you're married to the idea that that's the only way you can build a successful football team, I think it's stupid. I don't think you're mortgaging the future or doing it wrong if you bring in the head coach with the idea and with the approach of grooming and not grooming, but making Justin Fields the best version of himself, while also drafting your own quarterback in the second, third, or fourth, maybe not second, but third or fourth round, grooming him behind Fields. And then if Fields is not great, then it's both. The head coach drafts the quarterback. It's not Caleb Williams, it's not Drake May.
Right.
But what do we know about quarterbacks? It doesn't have to be those two guys for them to be good.
Well, it comes down to their evaluations. It comes down to Poles' evaluations, and assuming Matt Eberflus gets fired, maybe he doesn't, but if Matt Eberflus gets fired, it comes down to those evaluations of how much higher do Ryan Poles and insert head coach name X have Caleb Williams and Drake May over that next tier, over those third, fourth tiers, or how high or how high is Caleb Williams over Drake May? How high is Drake May then over JJ McCarthy and Bo Nix? How high are those guys over whoever? So it's tiers. It's like, we can say this easily because we think XYZ, but we don't know how Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus or whoever the future head coach is stack those guys and, rank those guys. If they believe in Caleb Williams or Drake May, and that those guys are far and away better than anybody you're going to find in third or fourth round, and they can be wrong, obviously. But if they're sold completely, and again, you have to consider the recency bias of Ryan Poles being like, crap, I passed on CJ Stroud. And to your point, maybe they wouldn't have drafted Stroud. Maybe they would have drafted Bryce Young. But still, it's in the back of his brain somewhere. Like, man, imagine this team with CJ Stroud right now. You're a playoff team with CJ Stroud right now.
I don't know.
You're a playoff team with CJ Stroud right now.
You're making a lot of assumptions there. If do
you think the Texans have a better roster than the Bears?
No.
Okay, then.
But do they have a better head coach who's going to win Coach of the Year? Yes. Do they have a young budding offensive coordinator who's probably going to be a head coach next year? Yes. Right? Like, you're making a lot of assumptions. They might be a game or two better, but to be like, oh, the Bears are 11-5 with CJ Stroud right now, that's not the case. It's just not the case.
You probably win the 3 games that you lost.
I don't know. I mean, is CJ Stroud's handing off to Khalil Herbert in the fourth quarter too?
Fair.
I don't think much is changing there. And he's also look, I love CJ Stroud, but I think there's a lot of reaches there. We could do this conversation all day. I know we only got 5 or 10 minutes left, but it's an interesting conversation. I just think it's just annoying to me. It's another option because it's annoying to me when people look at it so binarily. Is that even a word?
Objectively,
subjectively? No, people look at it's. People think it's binary, where you either draft Caleb Williams or you extend Justin Fields, and no one explores the idea of just letting this play out, picking up the 5th-year option, owing him only $6 million, having plenty of cap flexibility next year, and building a good team, and then deciding after that. So I just think that's the best way to do it. And in my scenario where I said they keep Justin Fields, that's what I want them to do. I don't want them to give him 160. I don't want them to potentially make that mistake like the New York Giants did, right? I don't want them to do that. And I don't think he's deserving of it yet. And I think he probably knows that too. And he could still get a decent amount of money. I want what's best for Justin Fields as well. As the franchise tag and 5th-year options, they can screw players. They really can. Because if he tears his ACL next year, he may never, have financial security for the rest of his career. It just might not happen. But it's just what's best for the organization, and it's the smartest thing. So anyway, the Bears play a football game on Christmas Eve, which I guess is kind of fun, a little holiday game against the Arizona Cardinals. Look, there's really just not. Well, Notorious TBG in the chat. Let's read these. The Texans also hit on Tank Dell. That is true. And the Bears haven't hit on a receiver since Alshon. That is actually one thing, real quick, and then we'll go to the game real fast. One of the main reasons I want them to just draft Mario Harrison Jr. to get done with it is because Ryan Poles has showed in 2 drafts at a small sample size, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing drafting wide receivers.
Sure.
I mean, Tyler Scott is a hit or miss.
Decent.
Tyler Scott?
Yeah.
Maybe.
He's played 6 games.
He's not sure. Okay. But
he was
Velus Jones
rounder.
Jr. Velus Jones Jr.
Bust,
I mean,
yes.
Bust,
Horrible.
right? If he's really good at drafting O-line. Let's assume that maybe.
Sure.
Maybe he doesn't know how to draft skill position players. Well, guess what? You can't miss on Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. Just draft one of those guys. Anyway, Bears-Cardinals. What do you got in this game? What are you feeling? What are you feeling?
I mean, I'm I've been honest. I'm rooting for losses at this point. You need the draft position. You're not winning anything. You're not going to the playoffs. It sucks. It's just that you're playing the Cardinals, and they're bad. If this game was going to be 20 degrees and brutal, then I would say that the Bears win this game easily. But it's supposed to be 45 and not that bad, which kind of makes me think that Kyler Murray might be able to cook a little bit. I still like the Bears defense. Obviously, I think that they're better than this Cardinals offense, but I think it'll be close. I think the Cardinals cover. I think they cover the 4.5. I don't think the Bears can be more than a field goal against anybody, but I think it's just going to be one of those classic Bears rip out your hair. It's just going to be a gross game that you hate yourself for watching.
That was last week.
Exactly. And
They're
I think it's going to be
those.
that again, because the Cardinals are bad, but also the Bears offense is anemic. And even though the Cardinals defense is bad, I just
the Bears offense is not anemic. Stop it.
With that play,
Stop it.
With yesterday's play calling,
they're not anemic. That is a terrible thing to say. Come on,
it's true.
They're not terrible, dude. They have explosive players. They're not bad.
They don't use.
They played a good defense last week. They should have scored more.
And they have explosive players who they don't use, and they have players who drop touchdown passes.
They're scoring 30 points this week. The Cardinals are bad.
Yeah, they are. Yes,
they're going to blow them out. Christmas Eve magic at Soldier Field.
What magic for what?
I don't know.
Magic to what? Magic to the 15th overall pick?
Sure. I mean, look, but you're assuming this is 2022 and that they're intentionally trying to lose. Again,
I don't think they're intentionally trying to lose, but I think it'll be close. I would like them to intentionally lose.
4 weeks ago, I said the Bears are one of the scariest teams that teams could play down the stretch because they have everything to play for. The head coach is coaching for his job. The quarterback's playing for his job. Players are playing for contracts, right? And we got to a point where they're actually playing for wins at some point. But still, this remains true. And it was true. They beat the Lions in a tough spot. They beat the Vikings in a tough spot for them. Like, you
were still in the playoff picture then, though.
Well, right. But I'm saying the teams still fear the Chicago Bears because they have everything to play for. They're not going to roll over and die for you. Sure. And they're playing really well on defense. And this Cardinals offense has had nothing going, really. I mean, sure. they got a little bit done against the 49ers and got some garbage time points, but the 49ers shot 45 on them or 49. This is a bad Cardinals defense. Again, Justin Fields, we still are not acknowledging the fact that these 3 games can make a difference. And I know it's worse teams, but if he goes 3-0 and throws for 300 yards in the next 3 games, you're not moving on from him. Like, recency bias is real. And if there's momentum to be gained in the next 3 games, you're going to be in a position where you just can't move on. So he understands that. And hopefully he walks in Luke Getz's office and say, listen, MFer, give me the fucking
if that
ball
was going to happen,
quarter.
It would have happened already.
I know.
It's clearly not happening.
But anyway.
All right. So is that your bold prediction? Fields 300 yards and 30 points?
Yeah. I don't know about 300 passing yards. We'll go 300 total yards in the game. I think the Bears blow them out. I think the Bears win this game 30-14. I don't think it's close. They played a little bit better at home as of late. They're able to close the deal at home. They did against the Lions. And I think we are crushed after the Browns loss, but this is an objectively top 5 defense in the NFL right now, the way they're playing. They're second in the NFL in interceptions. They're the Cardinals don't have playmakers to throw to other than Trey McBride. I think he'll have a good game for Arizona, but Marquise Hollywood-Brown has been terrible this year. Rondale Moore is just a gadget guy who can, maybe beat you for a 60-yard touchdown sometimes, but it's a really rare occasion. I do like some of the things that they're building over there with Jonathan Gannon, but this is not a team that's just ready to win. It's a team with not a lot of talent. There's a reason why they're projected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL and why they're, coming out to be one of those teams. So this is not going to be close, in my opinion.
I think it's going to be a gross game. I have no faith in the Bears. I think it's going to be 28-24. I think you get some Kyler Murray magic.
Loss?
No, I think the Bears still win.
Okay, good,
I think the Cardinals cover. I think that the Cardinals have the better coach. I think they still have the better quarterback. And I think I think it's just going to be an ugly game that is very, very gross. And you hate yourself for watching it and wasting your Christmas Eve with this.
Don't waste. No,
you do anyway. And because it's football and it's on the TV, I will say my bold prediction. I'm going to run it back. I think Montez Sweat gets a touchdown. It feels so close to happening. That guy's playing out of his mind, and it just feels like we're right there, and it just hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to run that one back. I think the Bears win. I do think that they probably beat the Falcons. They probably go 3-0 down the stretch, and you finish 8-9, and you get the 15th pick or whatever, and it's just going to be whatever. And then we talk about the number 1 overall pick for months and months and months, and it's going to be exhausting. But I mean, you're right. If Fields balls out over the next 3 weeks, I'm rooting for that because at the very least, either you keep him or his trade value goes up with that 5th-year option attached to it too. So maybe you get the Raiders or the Falcons or somebody to give up their 2nd-round pick. You're never getting a first from either of those teams, but maybe you get a 2nd-round pick and you'd go from there. I don't know. It's so gross. This game is so gross.
This game is not so I don't know why you're so. It's not that gross. It's not.
Gross.
It's not that gross. Also, if the Bears were to trade Justin Fields, they'd have to get a 1st-round pick.
Not happening.
100% would happen. 100%.
Who's giving up a 1st-round pick?
Atlanta.
They're not.
Pittsburgh. Are you kidding me? If you're giving up a 1st-round pick for Justin
Pittsburgh,
Fields.
maybe just because they might be in the 20s.
It's a failure if Ryan
the
Poles
Falcons are not
giving
you the 10th overall pick for Justin Fields.
Well, I guess the Falcons are if they had the 10th.
It's not
it depends. It depends. But it depends. You're right. It depends on the team. It depends on the team. But you're a failure if you don't trade Justin Fields for a 1st-round pick. It's a failure. Look at the return for Sam Darnold 4 years ago.
Sure, but he didn't get a 1st-round pick though.
I think
it was a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 4th.
Well, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th is basically a first round pick.
Sure. I mean, I would accept that. I like if you're the Falcons, just to real quick, like if the Falcons gave you Tyler Algier and their second round pick this year, we were just talking about how we need a running back.
Tyler Algier? Stop
We need a running back.
Stop it.
And
get out of here.
And the second round pick.
That's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard.
Who else
Tyler Algier?
Who else would you want from the Falcons?
No one.
Drake
Bijan.
Drake London?
Yeah, I would take Drake London. I'd love Drake London.
Okay, Drake
I don't
London
think they're getting rid of
Falcons
Drake
second
London.
round pick.
Yes, deal.
For Fields?
If they were to move, I obviously don't want them to move on from Fields, but if they had made that decision and we knew they were going to trade him, I would take that deal.
Okay.
So anyway, Bears gonna win this game, and
they're probably gonna win.
It's gonna be a fun game. And if you want to make some money, let's get these people some Christmas cash. Who do you think finds the end? You said Monte, so you're betting Bears defensive touchdown. Yep. I don't know if DJ Moore is fully healthy. This is gonna be like a really stupid like narrative thing, but I think like Darnell Mooney bounces back and scores a touchdown in this game. That's my really stupid offensive bold prediction. He might just be cooked. I'm actually gonna take that back. I don't think he's catching a touchdown. I
don't think he's cooked, but
I don't think he's cooked. But I don't. It's so weird how the relationship between the two of them is just falling off a cliff. Those guys were so tight knit.
I mean, you got DJ Moore after the game saying that like Justin Fields is better than anybody in the draft.
I know.
So
but I'm just talking about like on the field.
Sure.
Like they haven't been on the same page from route concepts and timing. Yeah. It's been really weird because those guys, like that was his dude hit the first and second year. Like they were on the same page. And I was like, wow, these guys, he knows exactly where he's going to be on every given route.
I mean, the Lions game though, too, like the go route. Like that still happened.
That did still happen. Last comment, and then we'll head out of here.
I think 1 week they're probably fine.
Okay, so he scores a touchdown. Is that what you're saying?
Sure.
Darnell Mooney finds the end zone. Get ready for it. It's probably good value on that. Notorious TBG. You're underestimating how teams look at Chicago as inept and incapable of developing talent. They all believe for good reason that we ruin QBs. Reclamation projects are the hot thing. I think what he's trying to say there is like, other teams who would be trading for Justin Fields know his value and his worth and know that the Bears ruin him and would thus be willing to give up higher value for him.
Or they try to lowball you because you don't value him properly. Could go either way.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, we got to get out
of
here.
All right, we'll be back next Wednesday. We will be off for Christmas, but we'll be back next Wednesday to recap this game and preview an equally gross Falcons game. Desmond Ridder or Tyler Heineke. Can't wait.
Heineke.
But, well, for now, because they haven't flip-flopped before this season. Yeah, for sure. All right, but everyone, all the listeners, all the viewers, you guys are the best. Very happy holidays to you guys. We appreciate you. We will see you a week from now. Until then, happy holidays. Stay safe. And as always, bear down.
Bear down.